Before we begin this week's episode of the Pardon the Politics podcast, we would like to acknowledge those affected from Hurricane Helene, especially those on the western part of our great state, North Carolina. If you would like to donate to disaster relief, you can do so at www.redcross.org. Hello, world. This is the Pardon the Politics podcast, season 1, episode 3. I am your co-host, Jeezy, followed here with my partner in politics, Manny. What's going on, Manny?
What's good, man?
Hey, man. First, before we go ahead and jump into the topics, we want to thank all the listeners who have tuned in to episode 1 and episode 2. It has been greatly appreciated. The feedback has been phenomenal. So we just want to say, hey, man, keep sticking in there with us. Share, like, follow, subscribe as we continue to give you this political content with a little bit of comedy behind it. So tuning in now, welcome to our 3rd episode. So, Manny, how you feeling, man? How things been looking this week?
Man, I mean, outside of my toddler only knowing to cough and sneeze directly into my mouth and nose, not too bad, man. So we're gonna take our vitamins, and we're gonna drink our tea, and we're gonna get through this. But while we had an action-packed week, it wasn't nearly as action-packed as last week. But yeah, I mean, we finally got that Kamala plan that we had talked about. Yeah, you've
been looking for it, and she delivered, brother. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 82 pages detailing out what her plan is and what she'd like to do with her administration. And hey, man, we got it. So I think we can comb over and look over it and sum what we see and what we like and don't like in it, man. So with doing that, man, she gave a lot of details, man. And one thing I will say, she gave pictures too. So for those of you who don't want to do all the reading through the details, there are pictures too of just simple words to hopefully capture your attention as well too. So I appreciated that.
And I think Floyd Mayweather might,
Floyd would definitely
appreciate that. So looking out for everybody. Already trying to bring the people together with her stuff.
So. Look, man, this is what a president does, man. It reaches from Dr. Seuss to Harry Potter to it captures everybody, man. So already she's off to a great start. But as we look into it, man, she broke it down into 2 sections. The first section that she had was lowering costs for middle class families. So we'll start right there at that section 1. So what'd you like about this section, man?
Man, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So as I started tearing through it, she even herself separates it out. So focus on cutting taxes for working people, lowering food and grocery costs, lowering healthcare costs, prescription drug costs, which has been like this magical unicorn the entire nation's been trying to chase for the last at least 12 or so years, and lowering energy costs. And the piece that I am very intrigued about is lowering costs by protecting consumers from fees and fraud. I'm excited to hear about it. I think if you look in just the text, so we'll just start with the text. She's looking to ban junk fees across industries like airlines, hotels, financial services, and ultimately, per her numbers, it would save households around $650 a year. So that's cool. There'll be some argument over that. Making subscriptions easy to cancel.
Yeah,
because I think everyone been caught up like, hey, I can one click sign up, but to unsubscribe or unsign up, I got to click a button. I got to fill out a form. I got to send that form. I got to wait 48 hours. And then I got to call and talk to somebody through an automated system before I finally get to the person to cancel it. So I'll be intrigued about how that works out. Yeah. And then also continuing federal efforts to eliminate scams targeting vulnerable groups. That is... Look, man, the scammers be scamming.
Bruh.
The scammers be scamming.
And at an all-time high.
And I forget it's like pig fattening or something, but like entire schemes that are set offshore the U.S. where they lure these people in and take their entire life savings. Yeah. That's intriguing. So that is the big thing, at least in that first section, that I'm excited for everybody about. But we'll see how it plays out. The devil will be in the details when we look at that first section. What about you? What did you see in that first section that caught your eye?
One thing that I thought was interesting was the lowering prescription drug costs. And we know that from the Biden administration, they've been very big on capping insulin costs for seniors at $35 bucks. But in this plan, she wants to go further than that and not do it for just seniors, but for all. And I thought that was a pretty good extension. Again, I don't know necessarily how effective they will be in accomplishing that. But I do believe when you look at the numbers and those that are
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry. Those that are affected. I'm sorry. Those that are affected by insulin, be it seniors. There are a lot of young people that have issues, or they're using insulin when it comes to diabetes. And I thought that was pretty cool that you have that kind of that full encompassing of not just for seniors, but for everyone. So I'd love to see how that looks.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. What was interesting, I think it was either it was late last week or earlier this week, where they actually brought in the makers of Ozempic and the other diabetes drugs. And one of the questions I believe was asked by Senator Sanders was like, why is this $1,000+ per dose per month here in the United States, but over Britain and other places in Europe, you can get that for under $100 in many of the countries? And the answer that the CEO gave was very interesting, because his comment was, we don't set the price. It's set by the insurance companies. So I'm like, are we finally going to put, big pharma against big health? And so it'll be really interesting to kind of watch how that ends up ultimately playing out as well.
Yeah, man, that's a great detail, Manny, because that's certainly not beneficial for the American people. And also in this section, and I think we've talked about this and discussed, she has appeared lowering food and grocery costs. That's an interesting one to me, because they want to cap the kind of stop price gouging, but that's a tough thing to kind of accomplish, because if you essentially, and this is economics 101, if you put a cap on this thing, you're not allowing the market to be competitive. There is something that's called an equilibrium price. And at that price and at that quantity is sufficient for the market, which is those that are buyers and those that are sellers. Well, if you put a cap on it, and let's say that cap is lower than where the equilibrium is at, then the market ends up having shortages. If it's too high, then it could be, you could have a lot of product that's just not being bought at all. It's very tricky because you don't allow the market to fluctuate. But that's the gray area, because you do have price gouging as an issue. So something needs to be done, but I don't know if in the details of it, will they allow the cap, or where they're going to have the gouging stop at? Will they be able to be adjusted by what is competitive within the market?
I mean, when you see and we see it in North Carolina every time a hurricane comes through from the coast and it's playing, where prices and stuff goes up. So I think you have price gouging or price adjustments that happen to try to prevent people from taking more than they need.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. You know, you got to think about the vulnerable. So it's going to be real interesting to see how that's implemented.
Yeah, that's something that I'd be interested to see, because I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I like bacon, and I'm tired of paying for the whole hog, and I'm only getting 16 slices of them.
As one of the great North Carolinians once said, the King Curtis bacon is good for me.
Look, King, I would love to hear King Curtis now to say, man, look, how do you feel about these bacon prices, knowing that bacon is such a thing that is near and dear to your heart? Because he's got to be suffering now.
We got to find out. We got to find out. For our listeners, just know we're taking that as a takeaway. We are going to try to find King Curtis and ask him how he feels about the price of bacon.
That's what we're going to do, man. So I'd be interested to see just how this plays out, because, again, it is an issue, but it's a tricky issue to handle. So those are some of the things that we had in Section 1 of the plan. Section 2 of her plan was to build an opportunity economy to help Americans get ahead and build wealth. So tell me some things that you liked about this plan section of the plan.
Man, and I'll just quickly run through all of them. Helping Americans buy a home through affordable rent, investing in small businesses that drive growth, innovation, and jobs, investing in American innovation, industrial strength powered by American workers, create security and opportunities for workers by building a care economy, strengthening opportunities in communities across America. And the last two, my bad, protect Americans' ability to retire with dignity and to make our tax code more fair and promote growth. So there are a couple things that, I think we can hit on. That at least that I liked. I will start with, making our tax code more fair. And look, man, our tax code is wild. Wow. And the more, there's no reason that our tax code should have, as you keep adding complexity, you create more loopholes. Yep. So, look, and then shout out to, I can't remember his name, 999 plan. I cannot think of his name. He ran for president as a Republican, black man. I'm going to think about it later in this podcast, but his thing was about basically making a level tax plan. Everyone pays 9%. I'm very much on board with that, but with a poverty line.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think there's definitely room to obviously simplify the tax code in that way. So that was the one piece. And the other piece that I was actually excited to hear about is the focus on cutting red tape. Yeah, man. Trump has talked about this. Republicans have talked about it. Everyone knows how complicated it is to do anything from a business standpoint, from a tax standpoint, and it makes it confusing. Like a great episode of the John Oliver show, he goes into taxes. Like, you should be right now. Legally, you are allowed to file your taxes electronically for free. Yeah. The government also looks to the companies like TurboTax and such to provide those services. In fact, when you go online and start going through the process, you're like, I'm going to choose the free option. Everyone I know immediately chooses the free option. But by the time you get to the end, I'm paying y'all something. Yep. So the focus on cutting the red tape and simplifying those tax returns and the tax code in general is something that I think will appeal to a lot of people across the aisle. Yeah. So those are two of the things that I liked in this section. Okay. What about you? One of the things I like is the strength and opportunity in communities across America.
As a product of growing up in rural America, that's something that I would love to see heavily invested in. I don't think there's nearly as much investing in the rural area, in the urban areas of communities as well, and especially from a infrastructure standpoint. We've all been in some of these areas and can definitely see that they're under developed. So I did like seeing that and supporting these local businesses and innovation hubs so that they can foster the local economic growth, because in those areas there isn't that fostering of economic growth. That's something that needs to be focused on. So I did like that aspect of her plan. And I think another aspect of it was helping Americans buy a home and afford rent. I think that's very big. I don't remember who our brother was that came out for the rent is too high party.
Bro, the rent was way too high.
The rent is way too high.
Where is he now? He was the hero we needed.
Bro, he was, man. And so I did like seeing this, and I like the fact of building 3 million additional affordable homes, because I think as you build more homes and more are available, that will drive, hopefully, the cost down. And for those who aren't able to maybe afford down payments, having that down payment assistance for first-time home buyers at $25,000. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I would love to see that, as well as them introducing incentives to rehabilitate homes that are in distressed communities. I think that's major, man. I've been in communities. I'm from Rocky Mount, and I can tell you, I can drive around Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and let me tell you, there are a lot of homes that are, as old people would say, they got some good bones, but they need some love. So I love that there's a plan in here to not only create or build 3 million additional homes, but also for those communities that have these distressed homes, that have these homes that need some love, but have a good structure, but necessarily haven't had the tender love and care they need, having incentives to go in those communities and build them up. So I thought that was pretty major, man.
I agree wholeheartedly with most of this. So the two parts I like the theory of the 25,000. But I'm concerned if that will just instantly add $25,000 on every single starter home across the country. So I think that is a consideration. And then if we're looking at affordability, again, I love the idea of creating a system in which people are incentivized to go rehab communities. I think the concern that we have is that, cool, if person X buys $100,000 house, uses this credit to re-incentivize this, and then re-puts it back up on the market for $1 million,
We've seen it happen.
It happens every day. Every day in every major city. They're flipping these houses, building $1 million houses where once a $250,000 house starts. So it becomes in the details. The other piece, I concur with you around the investment in rural America. And hey, it's politics. People are going to say what they need to say to try to get the votes. But especially when you think about North Carolina, again, you look across the entire nation, we are classified as an urban state. But of all the urban states in the nation, we are the most rural. So we really see a lot of these infrastructure challenges, and investing in this infrastructure being a challenge, especially just around broadband. You go back to COVID and hitting that switch from everyone being in class to everyone being at home. And then you got kids trying to go to class on AOL online, and they only got 50 minutes, so they got to burn through 12 CDs. Like that infrastructure is important.
It very much is.
And if you're talking about bringing everyone along, you can't forget about these rural areas.
And Manny, that's a great point, because I did not realize the state as that the rural community was in until COVID came. My wife is a fourth grade teacher in a rural community, and when they switched and said, okay, schools were closed and kids had to be virtual, the amount of people that were like, we don't have internet. and there's not the service that comes in our area is a company I've never even heard of. There's just no. It's like satellite internet or something. And and even if they were able to purchase a hotspot, they live in a community where the signal is so terrible that most of the kids can't even get on because it's bad. But then if you go 10 miles into the city, you have fiber, you have this, you have that, and it's like, wow,
it's a whole new world.
A whole new world, man, and just how many people don't have it, not necessarily because they don't want it, is not available in the area, or what is available isn't substantial enough. It's worse than dial-up. If you're one of our listeners that remember dial-up, Manny said something about the AOL CDs. Everybody's been in if you're around our age, you grew up in the dial-up era. The internet is worse than that. So having a plan that these people don't need to be forgotten about either. That, if you're going to have it available in areas that already have the infrastructure really to support it, we got to do just as much to get it in the rural communities that don't have a way to have it at all. So
absolutely. I think what we'll see with this plan over the next couple of weeks, several of these nonprofit groups are going to start tearing through it and doing some numbers. So ahead of this, I went searching for what some experts were saying around this.
Okay.
And from Penn Wharton at the University of Pennsylvania, Penn Wharton, their business school, and I'll give this disclaimer, everyone. Donald Trump is also a graduate of the Wharton School of Business out of Penn. So,
okay,
do with that information what you will. But I'm just going to read some key points that's in their messaging. We project that spending increases by $2.3 trillion over 10 years, while the conventional tax revenue increases by $1.1 trillion, for a difference in primary deficits of $1.2 trillion. Accounting for negative economic feedbacks, primary deficits increase to $2 trillion. So this stuff doesn't come at a cost. The other note, when you start talking about this and you start talking about the investment in manufacturing that she wants to do and how she wants to do it, they're saying relative to current law, that the GDP will fall by 1.3% by 2034 and by 4% within 30 years by 2054. Capital investment and working hours fall, thereby reducing wages by 0.8% in 2034 and by 3.3% in 2054. Low and middle income households in 2026 and 2034 fare better under the campaign proposals on a conventional basis, while households in the top 5% of income distribution fare worse. These conventional gains and losses do not include the negative impact of the additional debt burden or on future generations who must finance most of the spending increases. So, bottom line, this is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
But anytime, it's a strange thing. Anytime government gets involved in something, it just gets a little bit more expensive. So, there have been talks, and their focus around, hey, we're only going to increase taxes on those making $400,000 plus.
Yeah.
There's been concerns around that about how does that ripple? How do you tax unrealized gains? So there are a lot of questions that still kind of remain around this and what they're looking to do. We'll keep, we're here at the pod. We're going to keep digging through this stuff as it comes in and looking at it. But it's a great first step. The one piece I want to keep at the top of everybody's mind is that when you look at everything she wants to do, you got to legislate most of it.
Yeah.
And if you currently look at the Senate and how it's projected, if Democrats were to pick up every toss-ups, they still would not win the Senate. So you don't have the Senate. And then House-wise, it's a little bit of toss-up. Right now, it's like kind of 207 to 207. So the House could go either way. But you're going to have to try. you're going to have to try to figure out a middle ground on some of these. Some of these are going to fly. Some of these are definitely not going to fly at all. So then you have the question about what you're able to get through Congress versus what you can do by executive order. And I want to be clear. I don't believe this country should be governed by executive order.
I agree.
We're made to go through a process, as messy as it is, to get to some type of middle ground agreement. So I didn't like when Obama legislated by executive order. I don't like it when Trump did it. I didn't like it when Bush did it. I don't like it when Biden do. You're stepping around the process.
I agree.
So we'll see what she's able to do, in the event that she's elected, about how she'll get it through a divided Congress.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because if she does have to go through, as you pointed out, go through legislation, it's going to be a challenge. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a challenge of how this is going to look. And to your point, and I agree wholeheartedly, I don't believe that we should be governed through the executive orders as well, too. It's just not right. It's not something that we should be doing. And I love, and I'm just old school, maybe, I love bipartisanship. I love to see two people come together and find a common ground. And we see a lot of that not happening. And we need to get back to seeing that happen. And that's why I was excited when they had the bipartisan border deal. I was like, oh my God, we got some maybe we're getting back to bipartisanship. And then it was like, nope, it didn't work.
Nah, brother. Nope.
But at any rate, guys, I would encourage you. This plan is out there on the internet. So go out there, read it, dig through it, see what you like. If you guys have anything you want to give us, that you have anything you want us to talk about on the pod pertaining to the plan, let us know. Reach out to us on our social platforms and let us know. And we'd be greatly honored to do it for you. So with that being said, we're going to move over into our next topic, which we have coming up this week. So Manny, I'm gonna let you lead that, brother.
So going down on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
The master of the mattress versus the Minnesota Mongoose. JD Vance versus Tim Waltz.
Yes, indeed.
Are going to have them a debate on Tuesday, hosted on CNN, I believe.
Yes, sir.
I never really know at this point who's hosting it until I turn it on, because it's run on every channel. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be interesting. So there's a lot. I think before we get here, let's quickly hit on how we got here.
Okay.
So let's take a step back into how the VPs were selected. Mm-hmm. And I think both Trump and Harris were both looking for particular things.
Yep.
If you start with Trump, loyalty over everything.
Yep. Yes.
Loyalty. He was looking for someone who was aligned on the issues. They needed to have some type of electoral appeal. So he couldn't go completely an outsider. So Ramaswamy, he was not going to be an option. Yeah. Because he needed someone who could at least have some level of provenness in the political arena. Yeah. They needed to have that experience to still offset Trump's experience. They needed someone who was media savvy, had some unity in the party, and those are the big things. And JD Vance hits most of these. The one piece where I'm kind of like maybe not so much is that political experience. He was just recently, and when I say recently, I'm talking about in the last 6 years, elected in Ohio. So that's something. So JD Vance basically lined up to all those. There were some other names out there. A name that I liked was Marco Rubio. I think Rubio would have been a little bit too focused on doing his thing and shying away from Trump and not really able to be as controlled as well. So I think Vance lines up very well to Trump. And then, you're looking for Kamala, some of her key things. she was looking for diversity and representation. And while Waltz doesn't give that to you in terms of the diversity, in terms of representation, that middle America, middle belt line, that helps there. Electability, they needed someone who was going to have that electability across all the ages. Yep. And I think Waltz has shown very early on that he has that connectability for, boomers, Gen X, but then also carries some of that same relatability for Gen Z and millennials from more of a, hey, I'm a dad-like figure, like, hey, come ask your dad for advice on how to change the carburetor on my 72 Mustang. They needed the progressive credentials. I think Kamala was always walking into a situation where she was going to have to keep the party together. Yep. Especially with everything and how the fallout from the Biden decision. Strong communication and then geographical. We hit on those. So I think Walter very well kind of fell into those to make those selections. Now, let me be clear. I'm saying this as a Republican. I, as a North Carolinian, very much wanted Roy Cooper to be the selection. That's because, love or hate, no matter what state that you're listening to this from, I will say this, North Carolina is the center of the national political universe, and largely just because of that dynamic of us being a super urban and super rural state. So I think Roy Cooper would have been a great selection, but that's because I also always loved North Carolina getting some shine.
Hey man, look, you know how we feel about Roy Cooper the Hooper. We're gonna always ride with Roy the homie. But man, great points, man, of how we got here. And I think when you look at it, and to your point, how you well placed it, man, I think it was a no-brainer. Why these two presidential candidates picked the people that fell within those categories of what they actually needed. I think that as we go forward, we understand how they got here, but who are these two candidates? People may not be familiar with who J.D. Vance is. Again, J.D. Vance has not been on the political landscape for a long time. And people may not be familiar with Tim Walz as well either. So give us a little bit of detail of who J.D. Vance is.
Man, so J.D. Vance, and I'll just hit kind of like his political journey. So he wrote a book, the Hillbilly Elegy, published in 2026, that really just focuses on his working class family and how they dealt with social issues. And then he went to law school. It was a venture capitalist, but very early on, so in 2016, he was a big backer around Ted Cruz's candidacy, and then in 2022 ran for the Senate. And he was seeking to replace Senator Rob Portman. So that was another primary that was really crowded. I think any time where you have like almost a guaranteed seat for a party, that you're going to get a lot of people running. That's how North Carolina got Mark Robinson as lieutenant governor, because there was a bunch of people running in that, and he got the needed 30%. So he ended up winning in that general election. They were facing a Democratic candidate that Tim Ryan was pumping very hard. But again, that's a hard message in Ohio, especially when you need flip rural votes. So yeah, he won in November 22. So he has been there. And I think here is a very interesting point. Senate terms, for those of you who may not know, Senate terms are 6 years. So if he catches this L, he's still going back to Congress. Yep. So that is how he's got here. Tim Walz, a little bit different. Definitely a longer career. Before he was in politics, as I think most of us know, is this moment. He was a teacher, a football coach in high school. And what I did not know is that he served as the executive director of the Minnesota State Alliance of the Boys and Girls Club. When
I saw that detail, I was like,
okay.
I like it.
So, well driven. But his career really started in 2006 when he decided to run for the House. In the first congressional district. He was reelected 3 times. While he was in Congress, his focus was around veteran affairs, healthcare, and education. Obviously, having some level, I think that's one of the questions that we'll see come up on Tuesday when they talk, the talk around his military experience and trying to get a clarification on that. So that makes sense. So then in 2018, he ran for governor against the incumbent, Jeff Johnson, really focusing on education, healthcare, and the economy. And let me also just say this across the board. I don't believe we are ever going to have an election where the economy is not the top thing that people are running on.
Agreed.
So he was elected, and then, really seen as somebody who helped lead that state through the COVID crisis, and really during his time as governor, he did a lot of the same things he did when he was in the House. Was focusing on education, public health reforms, and he became more focused on tackling climate change. Yeah. So that's a little bit about both of them. And how who they are.
Yeah, man. I think also too with Tim is if you are familiar with the social issues that were around the death of George Floyd, he was the governor of Minnesota at that time. Yep. And having to navigate not only, like Manny said, to the COVID crisis, but having to deal with that sensitive time in society, and having to try to navigate his state through that. Minnesota had a spotlight on him. That is, if you know anything about Minnesota, that's not them. You can tell by the way that Tim carries himself. They're not a big spotlight type of people, man. They're very much modest and humble. And having this national spotlight put on them, he had to navigate through that, be it how successful or unsuccessful you deem him to be during that time. So Tim is somebody that definitely seems to be one of those guys that you run into at the Home Depot when you're trying to figure out like what size nail do I need. He comes up and starts talking to you about how he finished his deck and he's done this and done that. As Manny said before, man, I had to deem him with the nickname the Minnesota Mongoose because he's just certain people just need a nickname. He just comes off to me as one of those. But one last point I want to make too that I saw in his notes of who Tim is that the bipartisanship that he's been able to do. And I think that, again, going back to what Manny was saying about what Kamala is going to have to accomplish through legislation, having somebody that has experience in bipartisanship, I think is a plus, and somebody that does not mind reaching across the aisle. I think we've had enough of this division. So I would love to see someone that is able to do that and be able to drive that togetherness, that unity, that bipartisanship, even if you have difference of opinions. So that is our two vice president candidates, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. So we've talked about how we got here. We talked about who they are. So with Tuesday coming up, what do we believe we will see in the debate when it comes to the style in which both of these candidates debate?
Man, that is the question, because this could go two ways. Do we see a more conventional elected official debate, or do we get more into two people cutting WWE like promos for an hour and a half? And I don't think we know. Yeah. So I'll kind of go through some of my thoughts in terms of what do I think their keys to victory are. But to know, this could go sideways and this could all be wrong. So, all right. So if I'm Tim Walz, these are my 4 keys to victory for him. He's got to highlight his experience in government. Yep. Got to highlight that command and control. the next piece is to what you alluded to, emphasize that bipartisanship.
Yeah,
like, hey, I'm going to work together with people. Appeal to progress. Well, before I step away from the emphasized bipartisanship, that is going to be key in trying to flip some of those on the fence voters and those what's called a weak Republican or a Republican more likely to flip and vote on the other side. He's got to appeal to progressive values. You got to keep the base. You got to do what you need to do to bring people out, because there's a contingent of people on both sides that are committed to a candidate but may not vote. So he's got to say something to help bring them out. And then I think he's got to challenge Vance on the populism.
Yeah.
Flat out. Like, I think he has to challenge him on that. And really hit him on the rhetoric and different things that he said while he's run. When I flip the script, I look at J.D. Vance. He has to kind of dig for him to win. A victory for him would look like really talking to his base, which means talking more to the populist agenda and talking about those themes, talking about the issues with working class voters and how and really that us versus them mentality. I think he's got to attack Waltz on where he's failed in policy. Talking about crime, talking about the civil unrest that happened in the immediate aftermath with George Floyd, and then, critique the economy during the pandemic and how it's framed. I think he's got to attack him there. For him, also, number 3 for him is he's got to focus on what makes Ohio important. So really talking to those rural Midwestern voters and talking about those issues. Those are what you have to talk about when you run for statewide office in Ohio. But that's also what you now have to do. He has to do as a vice presidential candidate. Yep. And then the last key that I have for him is he's going to have to continue to push this kind of view. They're trying to paint the Harris campaign as elitist. Yeah. They're people entrenched in the swamp. We don't want, if we want something new, we need people who aren't in the swamp. I think they got to keep pushing that message to claim a victory.
I agree, man. And at any rate, I think that the approach of both of these candidates will be very key. We talked already about how the presidential debate went, and I think we know how it played out for or helped Kamala, and how it may have hurt Donald Trump. But I think that with these two, now it's like, okay, we've had Harris, we've had Trump. I feel like this is the debate that really needs to be viewed. I feel like this is the one that's like, okay, we already know we've had 4 years of Kamala, we've had 4 years of Trump. What can you tell us new? What can you promise us that, your identity will be as the vice president? Where do you stand? How are you approaching what the state of the country is in at this point, and how you plan on governing us forward, pushing us forward from the times that we've been in the past 4 years, or the 4 years that people remember under the Trump administration? So I'm personally very excited to see these two debate. I know that Kamala has thrown out that invite for Donald Trump to do another debate on, I believe it was like October 3rd. He's already like, I'm not doing that.
Nah, I'm good.
I'm not, whatever the date was, I'm not doing it. I'm
busy. I'm busy.
So, he busy throwing out chicken nuggets and chicken tenders at football games. But hey, Trump, and I just want to say, Trump is so comical, because I have flashbacks of when he was in Puerto Rico throwing paper towels, and Kobe. He has. I've said it before in the episode. I will not take away from Trump how he won, how he can move a crowd, and how he can connect with a crowd. But 2, we got to start respecting homie form. The elbow wrist, bro, like the elbow wrist form pull up is magical. But at any rate, anyway, I'm very excited to see what we will get from Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, and we will be tuned in. Us here at the Pardon the Politics podcast will be sitting down glued to the TV with getting the deets that we're able to provide you on this podcast. And I would encourage all of you, hey, tune in, give us your thoughts, let us know how you feel about the debate and how it went, and tag us at our socials on Pardon the Politics. So tune in, and that will be our segment on the vice president. So with that being said,
I'm so excited about this.
I got a treat for my brother Manny.
Oh man.
And before I start this, I just want to let you guys know first, the name of this new segment that we're going to introduce from this episode going forward is our political pickle of the week.
We got your pickle. We got your pickle. We got your pickle.
So our political pickle of the week segment will be based on who we have seen on the political landscape that is truly in a pickle.
Oh man.
Now, what's going to make this segment of our podcast episodes great is that my brother Manny has no clue who's going to be our political pickle of the week. So we will get his first take, his raw feel and emotions on who our political pickle of the week will be.
And before we hop in, me and Jeezy talk constantly through the day as news is breaking. We have a whole pre-production meeting that's in some cases longer than the podcast as we're going through.
Yep.
So while there's a chance that I've heard what he's going to bring up, we have not explicitly talked about this. I have no talking points.
Nothing.
I'm just going to learn this as he's given it. So pause.
Thank you for that, brother. That's our political pause. So for my brother, the political pickle of the week is none other than New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Oh no!
He is our political pickle of the week, as many of you may know or have already seen on your news networks or socials. Eric Adams was indicted this week, and his indictment was announced on Thursday by a man that I'm going to deem him as Brother Damian Williams, and I'm going to call him Brother Damian Williams, because first I want to shout him out because he is the first Attorney General of the Southern District of New York. So that is to be applauded. He is the first black man of Jamaican descent to hold this position. And if
shout out Jamaica. Shout out to my people in Jamaica.
Shout out to Jamaica. And also, if for more detail, you may be very familiar with Brother Damian Williams, because he was the one that broke the news a couple of weeks ago about a term that we heard called freak-offs.
That's the same dude.
That's the dude that brought us. Hey man, so he 2 for 2 on homies for like the past couple of weeks. He had the diddler a couple of weeks ago that he brought the news of the freak-offs that we saw his conversation about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
So basically, if he's on your case, you're done. You in a situation.
You in a pickle. and so you see where I'm going with this. So he broke the news about the diddler, and now he has brought forth information as far as the indictment against Eric Adams. And just to give you some details on, he was indicted Thursday, and the 57-page indictment was released on Friday for our reading pleasure. Mm-hmm. So Eric Adams has 5 counts against him, facing up to 45 years in prison.
Yikes.
Those charges are 1 count of bribery, 2 counts of soliciting campaign contributions from, listen to me, foreign nationals.
Come on, man.
1 count of conspiracy, and another count of wire fraud. So that's his 5 charges, or the 5 counts that have been brought against Eric Adam Up Adams. And it gets better. So he solicited and knowingly accepted illegal campaign contributions from a foreign donor and foreign corporations from the Turkish government, from a Turkish government official and businessman.
Did they say anywhere in the indictment about how much he allegedly took?
Oh, brother, I got that for you as well. He accepted well over $100,000, but he accepted them in luxury travel benefits.
Bro, people gotta stop this. People gotta stop this. No,
brother.
It didn't work for the senator. It barely worked for Clarence Thomas. No.
But this is the thing though. So he got free international trips. So what they do is he'd get on the Turkish airline, right, and then just somehow magically be upgraded to business class. So that was one way. He was staying at luxury.
Wait. Maybe he had status, man.
Brother.
Maybe he had status. You got that like elite diamond member, but come on.
He was
how
paying,
we know?
if I remember correctly, he paid like $600 for a flight. Like that's how he was covering this up. He'd be like, okay, I'm gonna buy like the economy ticket, and then magically, like a day before or 2 days before, he'd be bumped up to this top business class that was estimated to be like a $15,000 like seat.
So my man's was booking the ticket where you can't bring any carry-ons or nothing for $156.
He don't even get a bottle of water, bro. He don't even get water with it. He's in Group Z when he boarding. But somehow he go from Group Z to now he's getting on with the pilot. So it's like, okay. Then that ain't it, brother.
Bro, no.
Bro, brother. So he was also accepting this because while he was going on these flights, when he would get over to Turkey, he would get luxury hotel accommodations in these foreign cities. So, for instance, he'd get for us to relate, he'd get the best presidential suite that you could get in Vegas for the Lowski. He was paying Holiday Inn prices for these rooms. And one of the rooms, and in the indictment, they had a picture of it. It was called the Bentley Room. And brother, let me tell you,
was it nice?
What? Oh man, amazing! So, and this was where he would get these flights for his staff. He would get these accommodations for him and his partner.
Look, man, at least he was sharing. He was like, look, let me share the love, man.
That's probably what messed him up. Because you know that when you start talking to people get to cracking and it's over. Man. So he had a duty, as I'm sure you know, from a political standpoint, he had a duty to disclose these details, but he hid them through deleting messages and creating fake paper trails. And one of the things that I read that he did is that when they came to like seize his phone, he didn't have it.
He do the Tom Brady.
He didn't have it. So then when the next day when they got the phone, the passcode was changed on it, and he was like, "Oh, I changed it because since I know all this stuff was going on, I didn't want nobody from my staff to try to delete stuff." And then they said, "Oh, okay, well, what's the password?" He said, "Well, since I changed it a day ago, I don't remember." Bro,
not the old folk. I don't forgot my password.
Bro, this man is hitting JV moves, bro, in the pros. Even one of them, when they had a meeting with some of his staff, she was like, "I gotta go to the bathroom." She went in the bathroom and tried to delete stuff and then came and sat back down. Like the fact that they know all this was just crazy. So he did all these things. So of course and what they were doing with the Turkish official and the government businessman, the Turkish government official and the Turkish businessmen were funneling this money through straw donors. So basically, they were having regular citizens saying,
"I'm gonna
hey,
slide you 5,000. Go ahead and pass it through."
Acting like it's their own money, but it's not. So then it came to a point where the Turkish official said, "You guessed it. It's time for him to repay us." Look, we've done all these things, but now we need repayment. So of course, what does Eric Adams do? Sure, buddy. What you need? So what he did is he intervened in the New York Fire Department's inspection of a Turkish-owned building so that it could open even though it had not passed inspection. So he pressured them to go ahead and push it through, even though that the fire department knew that the building was not at code, it would not pass inspection. But the two individuals who passed this through said, well, if we don't do this, we're both screwed. We're both going to lose our job. So he intervened on this. And the reason he did this and why the Turkish official asked him this was because there was an upcoming trip by the Turkish president. So they wanted this building that they had to be open. They need
the pictures.
You got to have the pictures and the publicity. So this all started in 2018. But this is how I believe Eric Adams got caught, is that he started back raising money for his 2020. He started back reaching out to them in 2023 to rekindle these relationships, getting ready for his next campaign. So he reached back out, agreed to take these contributions from several Turkish businessmen, and then he even directed his staff to pursue these funds, even though he knew that they were illegal. So he did it his first mayoral campaign, and then he started back in 2023 trying to start it up again to reach back out to these people again. And you know what happened? Got caught.
That's just dumb. So that's dumb on a lot. The entire thing about this is dumb. But so now, after you become an elected official, every message you send, and I'm assuming they probably weren't smart enough to use like, hey, this is my hidden @gmail.com. Yep. They're probably using official email channels.
You got it.
So wide open for Freedom of Information Act pulls on them.
Yep.
And bro, what do you think?
So when Eric Adams got on TV and said, "Oh man, they just trying to attack me." Nah, brother, you set yourself up.
No, man.
And they got details. And I will say, for our brother Damian Williams, if he get on the TV and he tell you he got it. So,
but that's any federal case. If the feds are on you and they indict you, they already know.
And they already know. And the title of Brother Future from Atlanta has a song on his album that says "The Feds did a sweep." They did a sweep, brother. It don't matter. You can go change that passcode on that iPhone all you want to, brother. We already got what we wanted.
Bro, we just bring you in to see if we gonna have to spend some more money on a trial, or whether you just gonna admit it.
How hard are you gonna make this for us? But like Drewski said, we got him,
bro. So in the end, so as you're going through the indictment and whatnot, did it say anything about how this came up? Did someone just discover it? Like, was this? Did he send an email to Diddy and they're like, "Oh, let's look at this"? Like,
from what it sounds like, it looks like through paper trails, stuff started. He's creating fake paper trails and stuff just ain't adding up. Bruh. Plus, now. You know how people get when they got a good thing, they just can't act right.
Can't leave well enough alone.
So he's in Turkey going ham. Like, bro, he done been to Turkey 20 times in the past 6 months, bro.
Popping, bruh.
It's to the point where like his partner's like, "Hey, I want to go to this country," and he's like, "Oh, can we just use our hookup at the Turkish airline?" Like, bro, come on, man. It was to the point where it was like, we don't even got to go this way. Why are we using like what? Hey, man, we got a hookup. So if we got to go around, we got to go to Turkey and then leave Turkey to go here. We can just use them, and we ain't got to worry about, bro. So he's exploiting it, creating fake paper trails, and that's how he got caught up because stuff just wasn't adding up.
Bruh. So Eric Adams has had issues since he went into office.
Oh, bro!
Like from the rat bounties to reinstating stop and frisk. Like, my man's has had issues for a minute. And so while you were talking, two things I went to go look up. First was, how much is Eric Adams worth? And he is somewhere between $1 and $5 million. A lot for us in North Carolina, probably not as much in New York. Then I also went and looked up the salary of the mayor of New York City. It is $258,000 a year. So
not enough for you to be going to Turkey 20 times in 6 months.
But like, why are you also going to Turkey? Like,
bro, that's not even. If I told you, hey Manny, I'm going somewhere international, I'm gonna give you 10 tries to name where I'm going. I don't think Turkey gonna be one of them
at all. Like Turkey just, and I'll denote, I've never done research into going to Turkey. Not saying that I wouldn't want to go. I've just never thought about going there.
Yeah.
Nor I want to say a lot of the people that I talk to, you know what, we're going to run that as a poll later on this week. How many of y'all will be intrigued with going to Turkey? And so, but Turkey, like Italy, got you. France, got you. Rio, got you. Tokyo, makes sense. Egypt, okay. Israel, yes. Spain, yes. Russia, I can see why you would want to go.
Yeah.
Maybe not now.
Yeah.
China, I want to go to China.
Yep.
Maybe not now.
Yeah.
But you wild, man. Eric, you wild.
So Eric Adams, that is his indictment that has been brought forth by brother Damian Williams. So that is our political pickle of the week,
man.
So good luck, Eric. But hey, man, you might want to get comfortable.
So one thing I also looked it up now. So if he gets charged, he's got to give up the mayorship.
Definitely.
So,
oh man, I already know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So I want to know who's next in line. So according in New York City's line of succession, the next person who comes in is the public advocate. I'm going to say this name wrong. Jimmy Williams, who is the public advocate. He's been serving as a public advocate since 2019. And then right behind him is the city council speaker, Adrienne Adams. She became the first Black woman to serve as the speaker of the New York City Council with her tenure starting in 2022. So she's leading that. And they would serve as leaders until, if the mayor were to step down, they would serve in that position until there was a new election or until the term ends. Yep. But Eric, you got to do better, man.
Hey, I saw that there was a name thrown around on socials that said that he'd be interested in coming back. Bruh.
Oh, Como. He's like, I was good in governor. Let me come run New York.
Como said, baby, did you miss me?
Man,
but we will keep our eye on how all of this plays out for the pickle known as Eric Adams.
But best of luck, because it's the feds, because they got you.
Feds did a sweep.
Man. All right. Well, we got an exciting week ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
So, geez, with that being said, what are the things that you're paying attention to heading into next week? All
right. Well, my things that I'm keeping an eye on, or as we call it in our segment of the spotlight of the week, I have two things that I want to point out. One is I want to keep an eye on Vice President Kamala Harris's tone and approach to the border. This past week, she was in Arizona and had an event where she spoke very strongly about the border. I think a tone that we have not seen in recent years from her or from the Biden administration. And I believe that this is her first time at the border in quite some time. So I'll be interested to just see her approach as we go through next week and the last final weeks leading up into Election Day. Her approach and her tone of how she's going to handle the border. I believe that this issue, she knows, first of all, it's a serious issue. It's one of the top top issues. So I'm interested to see how she separates herself from Biden. I think this is a great opportunity for her to separate herself from Biden and paint a picture of how she will be more strict, more serious about handling the crisis that we have at the border. And secondly, I want to give a shout out to our brother Kai over at the Brotherly Fox, who sent a message this past week that I want to bring into the spotlight, and that is North Carolina voter registration.
Yep.
If you're in North Carolina, you may have already seen this, but want to make you aware that over the past 20 months, about 747,000 registrations have been removed in the system. So I would just say, now, granted, of most of them, they are due to the natural circumstances of why they should be removed, which would be death, felony convictions, out-of-state moves, or people just personally requested to be removed. But in all of that, with it being 747,000,
that's almost a congressional district.
Yes, it is. I just want to bring this as a spotlight to tell those that live in North Carolina that if you believe that you're registered to vote, that your registration is good in North Carolina, check it this week, just to make sure everything is up to par, that you weren't accidentally removed. Because as I spoke to Manny and told him, we are human. And if somebody's removing 747,000, I'm gonna tell you, if I'm doing it and it's about 5 o'clock and it's time for me to go home, I might have pressed the button wrong.
At least 3 people.
Yeah, I can't believe in my mind that maybe there won't one mistake, and it could not be. But I just wanted to bring that to a spotlight to say, hey, if you're registered in North Carolina, you think all your registration things are in order, just double check this week, because we know that this election is going to be tight.
Yep.
And North Carolina is going to have a great spotlight on it, and we do not at this point know how North Carolina will turn out. I believe that from polling, we may still be within the margin of error.
Yeah, we're absolutely within a margin of error.
And if you remember, in 2020, it was close as well too. So double check your registration, make sure everything's good to go. And those are my 2 spotlights that I'll be looking for going into next week.
Man, so me. The things that I'm looking at heading into next week, and I'll just start with the big one. Earlier, I believe it was on Friday, Israel killed the Secretary General of Hezbollah. So, in what people have called, cutting off the head of the snake of the group in Lebanon. It's heavily supported by Iran. So, big moves.
That's big.
And I think at the end of the day, if you look across the entire world, no country stands on business like Israel. If Israel says they're going after someone, they do it.
Oh yeah, they don't play any games. So
it'll be interesting. So the real complexity around this is going to be, how does Iran act?
Yeah.
From my understanding, their leaders have now gone into hiding in different places, so they decentralize themselves. We know Iran supports a lot of terrorist organizations over in the Middle East, so understanding their tolerance for this is going to be interesting, especially as you watch the situation in Gaza still play out, the situation in Lebanon now growing, how they act, how they respond to that. So I think that'll be a key thing that happens, and while usually you don't see global issues really fall into issues around a presidency, if something were to drastically escalate over the next 30 some odd days, I think that then also becomes an issue in our election. And on a happier note, on October 1st, our America's peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter, is turning 100. So happy birthday, Jimmy Carter.
Happy birthday, Jimmy.
Yeah, turn up, man. I don't know what you're going to do, but, 100's a long time. You've seen a lot of things.
Give that man just a single scoop of butter pecan ice cream, bro.
Bro, the folks love that butter pecan. Man. So happy birthday, Jimmy Carter, the first U.S. president to reach the age of 100.
Yes.
So we're wishing you nothing but a happy life and much vitality in your years. So enjoy that.
And most of all, thank you for the service that you did for this country.
Absolutely. From not only just serving as the president, but everything he did afterwards, with humanitarian outreach, Habitat for Humanity, just really leveraging that power, leaving the office to stay involved on the global scene. I think that can be saluted no matter what side of the aisle that you're standing on. So thank you for that, Jimmy Carter, and happy birthday.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So with that, y'all, that's the pod this week. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and we'll be back next week for more of your information and laughs. And I think me and G's have learned from the first couple episodes. We're not going to tell y'all what we're talking about because we don't know what we're going to talk about until it happens.
We have not a single clue. The political landscape changes every day, multiple times a day. So we're just going to try to do our best to stay informed, but most importantly, just bring you the laughter that we get out of just seeing how these things unfold. So in the world and the landscape that we live in, what fun is it if you can't laugh a little bit? So
absolutely,
that's what we're going to do. And we thank you for listening. This is episode 3 of the Pardon the Politics podcast.
We'll see y'all next week.